It was Francine's birthday. Arthur and Buster had the perfect gift. It was a cuckoo clock. The clock was bright blue and yellow. "Francine will love this," said Arthur, excited. Buster carefully held the clock. "Let's hurry. The party is about to start." They arrived at Francine's house. Presents were piled high. They could hear music and laughter from inside. "Come on, let's go give Francine her gift," said Arthur, eager to join the fun. Arthur and Buster presented the cuckoo clock to Francine. She loved it. "It's perfect!" exclaimed Francine, her eyes wide with delight. Suddenly, the clock started to shake. The little wooden door swung open, but instead of a cuckoo bird, a flash of light and swirling colors burst from the clock. "Whoa!" shouted Buster, jumping back. The light disappeared as quickly as it came. In its place was a tiny, fluffy, real cuckoo bird. It chirped and flew around the room. "Slide!" The word echoed through the playground, bouncing off the metal bars and swirling around the empty swings. It was a bright, breezy afternoon, and the park was alive with the sounds of laughter, the distant bark of a dog, and the gentle rustle of leaves overhead. But for Arthur, Buster, and Pal, this was no ordinary day at the playground. Out of nowhere, a flash of feathers darted past Arthur's head. A cuckoo bird, its wings a blur of color, zipped by so quickly that Arthur could feel the rush of air it left behind. The bird's call was sharp and playful, almost as if it was inviting them to follow. Without a second thought, Arthur, Buster, and Pal, Arthur's loyal and ever-curious dog, took off in hot pursuit. Their sneakers pounded the soft earth and Pal's tail wagged furiously as they chased after the mysterious bird, weaving between swings and dodging around the merry-go-round. The excitement in the air was electric, and the world seemed to slow down as they ran, hearts pounding with anticipation. The cuckoo bird darted through the open door of the playhouse and soared out into the sunlit park, its wings glinting in the golden light. Arthur and his friends barely paused, bursting through the door and out into the open, their eyes fixed on the bird as it swooped and looped through the air. The chase was on, and nothing else mattered. With a sudden flutter, the cuckoo bird landed gracefully on top of the playground slide, its tiny claws gripping the shiny metal. It cocked its head, watching the children approach, as if daring them to come closer. The slide, usually just a simple piece of playground equipment, now seemed to shimmer with possibility. As soon as the cuckoo bird's feet touched the slide, something incredible happened. The cold, hard metal began to ripple and melt, transforming before their very eyes. Silky, swirling chocolate oozed over the surface, twisting and turning in mesmerizing patterns. The air filled with the rich, sweet scent of cocoa, and the children stared in disbelief as the ordinary slide became something magical. "Whoa, look!" shouted Buster, his eyes wide with amazement. He pointed at the slide, unable to believe what he was seeing. Arthur's mouth dropped open and even Pal barked in surprise, his nose twitching at the delicious smell. The playground had never seen anything like this before, and the children could hardly contain their excitement. In the blink of an eye, the entire slide had transformed into a giant swirling chocolate masterpiece. It twisted and curled like a fantastical roller coaster glistening in the sunlight. The chocolate seemed to move on its own, swirling and spiraling, inviting the children to come closer and take a ride. The playground was now home to the most incredible slide they had ever seen, a chocolate swirl slide straight out of a dream. With a playful chirp, the cuckoo bird hopped to the edge of the chocolate slide, gave the children one last mischievous look, and then leapt in. It disappeared down the swirling, chocolatey tunnel, leaving only a faint echo of its call behind. Arthur, Buster, and Pal stood at the top of the slide, hearts racing, wondering what magical adventure awaited them if they dared to follow the cuckoo bird down the rabbit hole. Arthur, Buster, and Pal could hardly contain their excitement as they zoomed down the chocolate slide, their laughter echoing through the air. The slide was smooth and shiny, glistening under a candy-colored sky, and it twisted and turned in the most unexpected ways. As they picked up speed, the world around them seemed to blur into a swirl of chocolatey goodness and sparkling light. Their hands reached out, trying to catch the sweet, delicious scent that filled the air. It felt like the most magical ride they had ever been on, and for a moment, they forgot about everything else, except the thrill of the adventure. With a gentle bounce, they landed in a world made entirely of bubbles. Everywhere they looked, there were bubbles of every size and color, floating lazily through the air or clustered together like soft, shimmering clouds. The ground itself felt springy and light, as if they were standing on a giant bubble trampoline. Arthur, Buster and Pal gazed around in amazement, their eyes wide with wonder. It was as if they had stepped into a dream where everything was light, airy, and full of possibilities. Giant bubbles floated all around them, shimmering with every color of the rainbow. Some were so big that Arthur thought he could climb inside and take a nap. The sunlight danced across their surfaces, making them sparkle and glow like magical orbs. As the bubbles drifted by, they reflected the friends' faces, stretching and warping them into funny shapes that made everyone giggle. The air was filled with the gentle sound of bubbles popping, and the soft musical hum of the bubble world. "Where are we?" asked Arthur, his voice echoing strangely in the bubbly landscape. The sound bounced off the bubbles and came back to him, making his words sound wobbly and funny. Buster and Pal tried it too, calling out their names and laughing as their voices echoed back in silly high-pitched tones. It was like being inside a giant magical echo chamber, and every sound seemed to bounce and dance through the air. "This place is amazing!" cried Buster, bouncing on a giant wobbly bubble that lifted him high into the air. Pal chased after him, leaping from bubble to bubble, their laughter ringing out like music. The bubbles were so bouncy and light that it felt like they could jump all the way to the clouds. Every step was an adventure, and every bubble was a new surprise waiting to be discovered. Suddenly, as they bounced and played, they spotted someone familiar in the distance. It was Arthur's dad. He looked just as surprised to see them as they were to see him. Arthur's face lit up with joy and he waved excitedly, calling out to his dad across the sea of bubbles. Buster and Pal pointed and cheered, thrilled to find a friendly face in this magical world. But instead of his usual clothes, Arthur's dad was wearing a bright yellow raincoat and holding a giant bubble wand. He was blowing enormous bubbles that floated up and drifted across the sky, each one bigger and more colorful than the last. The friends ran toward him, eager to join in the fun, as the bubble world sparkled and shimmered all around them, promising even more magical adventures to come. Arthur's dad, lost in his bubble-blowing world, didn't even notice them. They continued their chase after the cuckoo bird, which had led them to a beautiful garden. Flowers of all shapes and sizes bloomed around them, giggling and whispering in the breeze. And in the middle, watering the flowers, was DW, Arthur's little sister. But this wasn't the DW they knew. This DW wore a crown of daisies and had a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. Before they could ask DW about the cuckoo bird, it zipped away again. Arthur, Buster, and Pal followed it into a cozy room filled with pillows, blankets, and stuffed animals. Binky, the toughest kid in school, was there, but instead of his usual gruff self, Binky was wearing fuzzy bunny pajamas and building a tower of blocks. "Binky?" asked Arthur, surprised to see him like this. Binky looked up, startled. He blushed and quickly tried to hide his teddy bear. The cuckoo bird flew out of the window. Arthur and his friends followed. They found themselves in a whimsical tea party, but everything was giant. Mr. Ratburn, their teacher, sat at the head of the table, sipping from a teacup bigger than Arthur. But instead of tea, the cup was overflowing with chocolate milk. "Arthur, Buster, there you are," boomed Mr. Ratburn's voice. "Care for some chocolate milk and cookies?" Before Arthur could answer, the cuckoo bird landed on top of the giant teapot. Suddenly, the world around them began to spin. The colors swirled and mixed, and then everything went dark. When they opened their eyes, they were back in Francine's living room. The cuckoo clock was back to normal except for the tiny bird perched on top. "Wow, what a dream," said Buster, shaking his head. "It felt so real," added Arthur, still amazed by their adventure. The cuckoo bird chirped one last time and flew back into the clock, marking the official start of Francine's much-anticipated birthday party. The gentle ticking of the clock seemed to echo the excitement in the air, as if even time itself was eager to join in the celebration. Francine glanced up at the clock with a wide grin, her heart fluttering with anticipation for the day ahead. Just in time, the other guests started to arrive, their faces lighting up as they stepped into the living room, which was transformed into a wonderland of streamers, balloons, and sparkling lights. The walls were covered in bright banners, and the scent of freshly baked cake drifted through the air. Laughter and cheerful chatter filled the room as coats were hung and presents were stacked on the gift table. Francine's friends couldn't help but gasp at the decorations, each one more colorful than the last. Muffy, always the fashionista, arrived first, carrying a beautifully wrapped box tied with a shimmering ribbon. With a flourish, she presented Francine with a gorgeous painting set, complete with brushes, paints, and a rainbow of canvases. "I know how much you love to create," Muffy said, her eyes twinkling. Francine's face lit up as she carefully unwrapped the gift, already imagining the masterpieces she would paint. Next came Brain, who handed Francine a book about famous rabbits throughout history. "I thought you'd enjoy reading about these clever creatures," he said, adjusting his glasses. The book was filled with fascinating stories and colorful illustrations, and Francine couldn't wait to dive into its pages. She thanked Brain with a big hug, grateful for such a thoughtful present. Binky, who was known for his strength and big heart, even brought a gift. He shyly handed Francine a box wrapped in bright blue paper. Inside was a set of juggling balls, perfect for learning new tricks and sharing laughs with friends. "I thought we could all try it together," Binky said, his cheeks turning pink. Francine beamed, excited to give juggling a try. Francine was thrilled with all her gifts, each one chosen with care and love. She unwrapped each present slowly, savoring the moment and the thoughtfulness behind every surprise. Her friends gathered around, eager to see her reactions and share in her joy. The room buzzed with excitement as Francine's pile of gifts grew. But what made her happiest was the feeling of being surrounded by people who truly cared about her. But the best gift of all wasn't something that could be wrapped in paper or tied with a bow. It was having all her friends together, laughing, hugging, and making memories that would last a lifetime. Francine realized that the true magic of her birthday was the love and friendship that filled the room. As everyone gathered for a group hug, she felt a warm glow in her heart, knowing that this was a moment she would never forget. The party was just getting started. They ate delicious chocolate cake with rainbow sprinkles, and everyone sang "Happy Birthday" at the top of their lungs. After cake, the games began. Musical chairs, pin the tail on the donkey, and a wild game of charades that had everyone in stitches. The room echoed with laughter as friends cheered each other on, danced to their favorite songs, and shared silly stories. Even the grown-ups joined in, clapping and snapping photos to capture every joyful moment. As the sun began to set and the last bits of confetti floated to the floor, Francine looked around at her friends, her heart full. It truly was the best birthday party ever, a day filled with laughter, surprises, and the kind of happiness that only comes from being surrounded by the people you love most.